is your background? Like, what was your background to be a writer?
That I could type fast.
That is a good start, especially 35 years ago when this project probably started. How long ago was it? When did you start writing this book?
It probably was that long ago, yeah.
So,
I can't believe it's been 35 years, but I think it probably has been.
yes, typing
right.
an essential.
Yes, it was definitely an essential. And actually, I had wanted to be a writer and didn't really think about what I needed to do to be a writer, because my mom would always say, "Oh well, one of these days I'm going to write a book," you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought anybody could do that, you know. And but actually, once after my husband and I were together, we lived in New Jersey. It was during Vietnam, and we were at McGuire Air Force Base. And I went to work at the library there, and they had lots of books on writing, and they used to have the Writer's Magazine, which I think is still out there. I'm not sure. But so I started taking the Writer's Magazine and reading books on writing and trying to write. And the best thing I could do was know how to write a manuscript, how to prepare a manuscript. So fast forward to being back in Maine, having 3 kids. The third one was still in diapers, and I put an ad in the local paper. I'm on a back road, the North Road in Sebec, and put an ad in the paper, you know, I can, you know, writing, typing, and the things that I could type, which I could type legal documents or manuscripts. I had worked in a number of different areas and fields, and so I got a call about a fellow that wanted to write a book, and so I followed up on that, and he had gathered a lot of things, and he had, most importantly, he had a contract with a publisher which was about to expire.
So he had a deadline.
So he needed
someone who could type fast.
Someone who could type fast. But that was the beginning of 3 years of typing.
Wow.
It's that manuscript, like, you know, it's the picture of it is in the back of the book.
Yes, I know it well.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, yeah,
and so that was
launched
the beginning of
Yes.
Making a Monster,
That's
which
right.
you've recently republished because it's been out of print for a while.
Yes.
And so, I know you, so I know the background
Yes,
a little bit
you
more,
do.
but our audience doesn't yet.
Right.
So what was it like writing Making a Monster back then?
It was just amazing because I had to, you know, be on the phone with a lot of the makeup artists. Most of them were men, and it was significant to me to put this on here because this is Stuart Freeborn's wife, who also worked in hairdressing and makeup as well. And, you know, I thought, well, that gets one in for the girls, you know?
Right.
Yeah. So.
Because this isn't the original cover. When you republished it, you
That's
had
right.
a different cover.
That's
so you
right.
had a little bit more
Yeah.
autonomy when
Yeah.
you were
Right.
publishing the second time.
Yes. And at the time, Planet of the Apes was like the big one, you know. So they were, in fact, the creator of all the ape masks and everything else was filming another film in the Caribbean at the time. But, you know, he was often, you know, on the phone and, you know, available to talk to. And, you know, here I am in a little house with, you know, the older kids off to school and the younger one home trying to flush my makeup down the toilet if he could get into my handbag. And I'm typing away on, you know, my old Royal or whatever I had at the time. I don't even think it was an electric typewriter.
Wow.
And which is probably why my shoulder hurts. Oh no, it's this one.
It's an old work injury.
Yeah, right.
And so the first cover was the Planet of the Apes.
Right. Yes. Yes, it was. And so there was, you know, a lot to do there. And then we began to be in touch with Stuart Freeborn, who was in England and doing makeup for Star Wars, and that was down the road a bit. And then there were, you know, talking with not just makeup artists, but some of the stars who were in some of these films, like, you know, Vincent Price and you know, he was, I can't remember the name of it right off the top of my head, but if you look in the appendix.
But these celebrities would make time for you to
yes.
interview them so that you could document the artistry.
Right. Some of them would. Some of them were rather reluctant.
They were unavailable.
Yeah, they wanted it to be a mystery, and but the makeup artists were often available, and yeah.
Were you an avid movie watcher at the time?
Oh yes.
So you were familiar with the people that you were interviewing, their work.
Oh yes, I grew up in Center Theater, more or less.
Oh, in Dover, Foxcroft.
In Dover, Foxcroft, Maine, which is still going, thanks to a lot of people. But we have, but all those early movies that are in the book, like The Fly, and those, you know, invasion movies, you know, from outer space and all of that were in there, and then some, you know, films like Gone with the Wind, you know, and Vivian Leigh, I think, may have been deceased by then, but there were a lot of letters that she had written, and to one of the producers, and you know, we had some of those, and just all kinds of stuff.
Well, and it's such a comprehensive book. I mean, the first last word on 3D monster design is the subtitle for the book, and
right.
I mean, you have everyone, it seems, in there, from like Frankenstein and
yes.
Bride and
right.
Planet of the Apes, obviously, especially back then, was very.
That was just coming out, very popular.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's just this sort of it's like a time capsule. Your book is like a time capsule.
It is.
It's
very
really
much
interesting. And so the ones that you interview, the makeup artists, they shared their secrets with you?
Well, not secrets, but yes, they would, you know, share different things. Sometimes I remember when we were interviewing someone, I was talking with the person who had done the makeup for Tippi Hedren on The Birds, Alfred Hitchcock's big movie of that era.
Yeah.
And because he had to make her up because the birds attacked her. You know, and so, you know, she was this very beautiful blonde, and he put on all the makeup that he had to create, and then he said she looked in the mirror, and then she went and threw up.
Oh no!
So, because she looked so dreadful.
Oh no! So you not only got the techniques, but you also got tidbits about the reactions.
Yes.
And,
yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
And so you said this was a more than 3-year project.
Yes.
And you were raising, how old were your children?
My oldest was 12, and then his sister was 10, and then the youngest was about 18 months, I think, when it...
18 months.
He was 18 months, and then he was 3 when it was finally published. Yeah.
That seems like an enormous task. I mean, like raising a child, let alone 3.
Yeah, right.
And then publishing a manuscript of this depth.
Yeah.
That's
right.
How'd you do it?
I just sent him on the school bus.
Not at 18 months, you didn't?
Put him down for a nap. Yeah, I wrote a lot at night, in the morning, during nap times, you know. And my husband was very good about making dinner.
Oh, that's
yeah, it was
wonderful.
great. Yeah,
so you had a supportive partner.
Yes, I did.
That helped.
Yes.
Because I think, you know, a lot of the people who will tune into this show are budding authors or want to be authors.
Right.
And they will often say, I do not have time in my life right now to write a book.
Right. Yes.
And what I'm hearing you say is you find time when that's what you're going to do.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You fit it in. You do it. You know. And it was I'd go out and check my mailbox, and I'd never know, you know, what to expect, and there'd be other, you know, exciting things in there. You know, all I had was, like I said, the typewriter, which probably was not even an electric, and a tape recorder, and we would send out these, you know, what do you call them, tapes, and they'd come back, and I'd have to, you know, transcribe the tapes, you know, and do it that way, and then form it into, you know, a readable style, and you know, a manuscript.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a lot.
All the while.
But I loved every bit of it.
It sounds like such fascinating.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite interview that you did? Or?
Well, working with Stuart Freeborn, that was really nice. I can't think of anyone in general. I mean, I like them all the ones that I had, first, contact with. I do remember getting, I think it was, I forget who wrote it now, but a tape from one of them, and I was transcribing it, and he was talking about, it was really bloody and gory, and I remember thinking, oh, I can't let the kids hear this, So it was just about anything, it was all kinds of different things.
So they would talk about the technique, but then the application of the technique, like why they were
right.
making the monster up to be a certain way.
Yes, yeah, different things like that. Yeah, forming the mass, making the contacts, to build the rubber mass, making the design and there was the designing. There was the appliance making, which is what they called the rubber masks and everything. They called them appliances, and how they formed those and how they did those. And there was a lot of that. Yeah, making Spock's ears to be pointy and things like that.
Yes, well, just the pictures in the book are amazing. I mean, a lot of them, I'm sure people just haven't seen before. Just the behind the scenes glimpses.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's not a how-to book. It isn't how to do this.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that.
Yes, yeah. I think some people thought that it might be, but it definitely isn't. Yeah.
So is it more anecdotal?
Yes, it's very anecdotal and more the stories by the makeup artists themselves. So, yeah, that's
which a lot of times is the untold story. We, as a society, are fascinated with celebrity.
Right.
But typically the celebrity is the person being filmed, not the person behind the scenes.
Yeah. I called, I remember being in touch with, they didn't really have the kind of makeup that would require, this sort of monster makeup thing. But there were a couple of famous people, and I had called one of them in New York City and asked him, because the makeup artist not only had done other people, but they'd also done their stage makeup, but it wasn't anything elaborate. And I remember talking to this person, I won't say who it was, and I, my lead question was, something to do with the makeup artist, and do you think he helped contribute to, your role? And he just said, no, not at all.
Oh dear.
Oh, okay, bye.
So no accolades.
No, none at all, none whatsoever. And I can understand that because he was a dancer, so really, I guess, he didn't really contribute to that other than doing makeup that probably enhanced, his features for the stage and for the film audience. But, it wasn't like appliances being designed and glued on or anything like that.
Right. It's a totally different,
and
I'm sure a totally different connection that those type of makeup artists would make with the actors and the actresses on screen. I mean, they spend hours together, face to face.
Yeah. Well, you think of like Tippi Hedren's makeup in The Birds, and doing something like that, and and certainly the Planet of the Apes, that was quite a long and really, if you think about that, that was quite an undertaking, to take a human being, to take not just one, but a whole cast of it, and come up with what would work, and design it and create it, and that was pretty fascinating.
And be realistic. I mean, we know they're monsters, or monster-esque, but we still, for a successful movie, they need them to be relatable on a human level.
Right.
And so that's a really unique skill to have that balance.
Yeah, it is pretty cool.
So Sue, you touched on this earlier in our conversation, but can you tell us in a little more detail why you chose this as the cover picture with Chewbacca.
Certainly.
Yeah.
Well, thinking how much time has grown since the original book was out, which was the late 70s. I wanted to pick a picture that was familiar to older people and younger people, and I think I'm hoping that Chewbacca is continuing to be familiar to a lot of people. It's been I forget how many different movies, Star Wars 1, 2, 3, 4, the Force is with us and all of that. Yeah. So I felt like that would be, that kind of stood out to me.
He is definitely a timeless icon now.
Good.
And
yes.
beyond the movies, all of the books and the comics, there's a number of different cartoons now, I think, as well.
Yes, yes. And at Halloween, he may show up at your door.
It's true. It's true. I don't know.
Never
it's kind of hard to be afraid of him, though. He's not exactly a monster anymore.
No, not at all.
He's too much of a celebrity.
He never was, really. He's a Wookiee.
It's true.
They're very good.
It's a great image, and all the pictures inside. Like I've said, it's like looking back in time. Well, it is looking back in time.
It really is.
Yeah. And the crispness of the images. And
yes.
It's a beautiful, beautiful book.
And the artwork that went into, all the makeup artists were artists. The emphasis is on the artist and how they, turned everyday people into so many different, to women to age and men to age and to be young and, depending on what era you were in and all of that,
Yeah,
did a great
and
job.
that's a good point to bring up. Thank you for saying that, because Making a Monster is a fantastic title, and yet it does not fully encompass everything that goes into that artistry.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
It really is through whatever concept you want to come up with. Mm-hmm. Really. Yeah.
Well, I imagine that this book is going to be sought after by even universities and colleges that are teaching both, now history, but as well as just the old-fashioned, still used techniques that are essential.
I believe that too. I think the University of Maine, should be interested in that for its art department and for its theater programs.
Yeah,
and
I mean, colleges are certainly throughout the United States that are familiar with these particular subjects.
Yes,
it's really, really neat.
Yeah.
I feel like part of what it is that we're doing with our program is talking to authors, but talking to authors out there in the audience as well about like the steps of becoming an author, which is a different path for everyone, but also the discipline of being an author.
Right.
And from what you have said, yours had to have been quite disciplined because you had your children's schedule to work around. And
yes.
What advice do you have for authors, particularly mothers with young children?
Well, I think you find that time to do it. Mm-hmm. You take that time from whatever you need to do, and you work at it. Mm-hmm. And I know it's a little bit different when you're doing a nonfiction than when you're doing a fiction, or memoirs or whatever you choose to write. It's a time for a person to sit and reflect and have their quiet time, and you definitely need to figure out a space. For me, it was the kitchen table, and I happened to be out in the country, and my view was of the back fields where the kids would play, and the hills behind them where I could watch the colors turn in the this autumn. We're here in autumn now, but any time of year, there's always change going on out there, and it would give me time to reflect on my writing and go back and change it or go forward and add more.
So beautiful, picturesque place where you can contemplate, have some self-reflection, probably some reprieve from other busy things in life.
Exactly. Getting away from the hubbub, is a really good thing. And for me, it was with kids in school, was the quietest time, but if you can find a retreat, you should grab hold of that and do that.
Right.
You know?
Well, and I'm thinking now across the landscape of authors and writers, there seems to be a lot of opportunity for that, for having writers clubs. I mean, online, especially right now, but in person as well. There's any number of workshops and retreats of all number of lengths. I mean, you can go away for a 6-week writer's retreat if you have time.
Right.
to do that.
Yes.
Or you could have a weekend workshop and network. I would think that kind of feedback with other authors would be really beneficial.
Yes. It is, definitely. Yeah.
So you're an author, but you also you have a whole other professional career.
I do.
that you're semi-retired from.
Yes. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, so I'm often writing notes and working with people, and I'm working with people, and I only work 2 days a week now, but I found that often, and in fact, I think I was at a writers' conference when I was talking with someone and asked the question, did kind of pose that question, and that I like to write, but I'm also a licensed clinical social worker, and the answer was yes, and you do a lot of writing, and you're interested in people, and that's the part of interviewing and all of that, so it's a natural segue, to do that.
Yeah.
And I've written a few things since the book. I've done some nonfiction articles and been published that way as well.
In your field, you mean you've done those?
Yeah. No, not in my field.
Oh.
No, not at all, actually.
Interesting.
Right. In other areas of interest.
So following that creative spirit.
Right.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. It's been great.
So as you look towards maybe more full retirement, are you considering writing another manuscript, and a novel, or?
It's always there.
Yeah.
It doesn't go away. Yeah, I would like to. I would like to write another one. I think more now, and maybe more of not a biography, but more of a reflecting family, on my family's history. Like my mother always wanted to write a book. Now maybe I'll be the one to write her book because she never did,
Yes.
So things like that.
So a memoir about your family.
Yes, yeah.
That would be beautiful.
I think so. I hope so.
Oh.
Even if it's not published, it would just be an interesting thing to have and pass down.
It's true.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to have information in our credits and everywhere we share this online.
Okay.
Where people can find your book and find out more information about you.
Okay.
Is there anything else that you want to add? Because I know time is coming to the end.
No, I'm good. I'm good.
It was just a delight to have you here in the studio with me today. Thank you for being here.
It was a treat to be here, believe me. Thank you. Yeah.